Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another video. In this one, I wanted to take a look at the upcoming Duel Decks set. So there's going to be a new Duel Decks event that's going to be running in Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest, and just like in the previous one, the Zendikar versus Eldrazi, they've gone ahead and made a bunch of new cards. Now, what's really cool about these is that they're all going to be standard legal. So once this event drops and you're able to pick up these cards, you can use these cards in your standard decks until they rotate into Legacy. So this is the first time that we've seen something like this where they've made like a subset that's also standard. So I'm really excited about the precedent that this sets, and I actually love the set itself. So I'm going to go through it with you guys. I actually like it more than I like the look of the Theros Beyond Death set. It's all rares and mythics. So yeah, let's take a look. So we've got this first one, Agent of Erebos. It's an enchantment. It's a zombie, and it's black. So Constellation, exile all cards from your opponent's graveyard. Then your opponent loses 3 life. I'm interested to know if your opponent loses the 3 life, even if they have 0 cards in the graveyard. So there's nothing to get rid of. But if you're a person who got the Eidolon of Blossoms bundle, there is definitely going to be an easy way for you to trigger this little Constellation ability 6 times a turn for 18 lost life, along with all the other things you're doing. So I'm really thrilled to try out green-black Constellation, just as a spoiler. So the black-white is like Constellation themed, it's enchantment themed, and then there's red-white, and that's big monster themed. Ajani's Chosen is 12 mana for a 6/6, and then Constellation, create a Auramancer cat token. So I suppose I could have just had this up on my screen, right? Like my phone up too. But this particular card is going to make a 2/2 token. The little Auramancer cat is a 2/2 token, and it has Heroic. When this creature gets +1/+1, then the first Aura card in your hand gets 3 mana. So it's basing on that whole like Aura theme, and Auras are indeed constellations. So this one doesn't look super powerful to me, but I'm still kind of excited to try it, right? Just because I like all of these, basically. Anax and Cymede. This actually won me the pre-release of the original Theros set. So I got this in the paper one, and I won 2 booster boxes for it on the pre-release, which is pretty cool. So I have a little soft spot in my heart. But this is 9 for a 5/4, first strike and haste, and then Heroic. So when you target it with a spell, your creatures get +X/+X and gain trample and vigilance until end of turn. X is the number of opposing creatures. So this ability is kind of a bad ability right here. You're definitely going to want to use it either on your opponent's turn. You can use something with Flash, and then you'll be able to block and buff your creatures. And the only way that you're going to be able to use something with Flash is if your opponent has creatures, so it works nicely with that. The only problem is that Flash is not in a good place in this game right now, so I really don't see you using this Heroic ability much. For newer players, this is a great card just because it's 9 mana for a 5/4 haste. So for you new people, you will be able to smash faces with this all the way up through gold. So good card for newer players. Anger of the Gods. So deal X damage to each creature. X is 5 plus the number of graveyard gems. Then remove all graveyard gems from the board. If a creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So you could definitely use this as a board wipe, and it's going to get rid of graveyard gems. The thing that I don't like about this card is that it then removes all the graveyard gems. So likely you're going to be the one that's using graveyard gems, since not many people are using them right now. And so if you're getting rid of the mechanic that you're trying to build up to wipe the board, that's really not too good for you. There's going to be better board wipe. So Anger of the Gods, not good. Banshee of the Dread Choir. So when this creature attacks, reinforce it X times. X is equal to the number of creatures your opponent controls more than you. So you're going to see a few cards with this this ability, or like generally like this type of ability where it's based on your opponent having more creatures than you. I don't particularly like that, just as I don't like playing other people's cards, just because it's not very strong in my opinion. Like my opponents probably aren't going to have more creatures than me very often, and if I'm playing black, which this creature is, I'm probably running a lot of creature removal. So in order for this thing to be good, and it's only until end of turn, right? That reinforcement's until end of turn. So in order for it to be good, your opponent needs to have more creatures than you. So that's not good. And then when this creature deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, your opponent discards a card. So this bottom ability alone is very good. You can use this to lock your opponents down, especially as it has menace. So it'll be hard for them to block this thing anyways. I could see this being good with Liliana 1, but the top ability is... nah. Bearer of the Heavens. So 17 for a 10/10 is big. This is a big boy. And then when this creature dies, if it's not a copy or a token, create a Falling Heaven token, then exile this card. So that Falling Heaven token is going to read, when this support is destroyed, destroy all creatures and all the gems. So, I mean, this... and it's got two shields. So, I mean... The thing about this for me, right, is that if your opponent goes and kills this thing, then, I mean, ideally, you are building back up again. And so if they destroy the support, you're just going to lose everything that you've built back up again. I know that it could go the other way, right? So your opponent has more than you, so it's going to get rid of your opponent's stuff, but you really can't control this very well. So I like this in theory, but I don't... Or not in theory, right? I mean, I like the idea of this. That's what I'm getting at. I like the idea of it, but I don't like it. Black Market. I do like this one. So it's 8 mana, and it's got 1 shield. It's got that thing here where if it gets matched, it doesn't lose shields. It just is like a perma support that changes colors. And I think it's called Resilient. And then when a creature dies, this support gains 1 shield. At the beginning of your turn, convert X gems to black. X is this support's shield. So there's a whole bunch of ways that you can increase support shields. You can use something like Karn, right? So Karn's third ability is going to be buffing up support shields. There's a whole bunch of stuff that does it in the game right now. And then whenever a creature dies, it gains a shield. So like if you use it with one of the Lilianas whose first ability is to kill a creature and bring it back as a zombie, you can increase this thing's shields pretty frequently. And then just as you reinforce it, it's going to get more shields. So I could see this converting a heck of a lot of gems to black pretty darn quickly. So I like this. And also it's whenever a creature dies, so yours or your opponent's. And finally, it's an enchantment, so it's going to trigger Constellation. So the white-black, once again, is Constellation. I absolutely love this card. So I'm really excited to get it and play with it. Boulderland Behemoth, 18 for a 6/6. While on the battlefield, this creature gets +6/+6 for each other giant creature you control. I mean, this could be pretty nasty, right? This could be 18 for an 18 for an 18. 18 for 18, right? So if you've got 2 other giants, it's going to get +12/+12. This could be a really cool card, once again, for newer players. I mean, even for people who aren't as new, it's pretty good. It's only going to reinforce for 6/6 each time, but still, getting a potential 18/18 is nothing to sneeze at. Like, this thing's scary and a little bit ugly. I don't want to look too closely at whatever that thing is. All right, Celestial Ancient, Constellation. All your creatures get +2/+2. So, given that I could easily get like 6 enchantment cards off a turn, and then Constellation, I believe, triggers regardless of whether or not you cast them. So if they just get played. So if you've got like Killer Instinct, that makes it up to 7. And so there's a whole bunch of ways that you can make it so like all your creatures basically are getting like 12/12, 14/14 every turn. That's going to be 36 to 42 damage, or, you know, that you're adding to your creatures every single turn. This is a really good card. Like, Jace's third ability is really good because it buffs everything for drawing cards. Constellation's going to be really easy to trigger. Once again, I know you have to have Eidolon of Blossoms to make it like super easy, but there are other easy ways to do it. So this card I could see myself getting a heck of a lot of use out of. So good card. Celestial Archon is an aura. It's one of those ones where it creates tokens if the critter that's enchanted dies. Gives a creature 4/4 first strike flying, and then if the creature dies, then you get this little 4/4 first strike flying creature token. And if your devotion to white is 9 or more, that creature gains protection from all colors. So devotion to white being 9 is pretty big. That's a lot of devotion. So you're probably not going to be getting this bottom half. you're really playing it for the top half, and 15 to give something first strike flying and 4/4 is not good. So Celestial Archon, not as thrilled about. Dawnbringer Charioteers, 14 for a 5/6 flying and lifelink, love it already. Heroic, this creature gets +X/X, then create X human soldier tokens. X is the number of opposing creatures. I don't like this heroic ability, but I do like a 5/6 flying lifelink, but not for 14. So this one you can probably pass on. Daxos' Torment. This card is going to be a savage monster. This thing is really, really good. So it's 15. It's an enchantment. When you cast an aura or an enchantment card, create a demon token. This doesn't say Constellation because Constellation is whenever one comes into play, whereas this, you actually have to cast one of these things. But nonetheless, I've already said that you can probably get like 6 enchantment casts in a turn at times, and these demon tokens are 5/5 flyers, so that's like a 30/30 demon token every turn. It's an enchantment, so it's just going to fuel the fire, and then when this support enters the board, if your devotion to black is 7 or more, which, you know, it probably will be pretty quickly, your demon creatures get +1/+1 and gain trample. So this is a really, really good card. This is one of the first cards I'm hoping to get. I'm definitely going to be chasing Daxos' Torment. Deicide. I love the picture. Like, the art for this is really cool. I think it's Elspeth over there showing Heliod who's boss, but whatever. So 7 mana, exile an opposing enchantment support. Then if that card has the god subtype, exile all cards with that subtype from your opponent's hand and graveyard. Yeah, I mean, it exiles an enchantment, which is cool, but it can only exile enchantments, so I probably will not be using that. Desperate Stand. Target creature you control gets +4/+0 and gains double strike and vigilance until end of turn. Then you may drain 7 mana from your hand. If you do, repeat this effect once. Yeah, this card is awesome. So being able to give 2 of your critters +4/+0 and double strike until end of turn is a fantastic ability. Like, just absolutely fantastic. So this is going to trigger heroic, but even if you ignore the whole heroic thing, I mean, there's like so many big beefy things in red and white right now. And then on top of that, this set is giving us a whole bunch of really beefy things, and it's got flash. So if you just want to use this to remove all your opponent's creatures, because once you get that +4/+0 and double strike and vigilance, you're probably going to kill everything that's attacking you anyway. So this card has an incredible amount of utility, offensive and defensive. And even if you don't drain the 7 mana, yeah, it's still a lot of value. So I really like this card a lot. Diabolic Servitude. 9 mana, black. So pick one of the first 4 creature cards from your graveyard, return it to the battlefield under your control. That creature gains Enchanted. When this creature dies, exile it instead. Then return a card named Diabolic Servitude from your graveyard to your hand. So this is going to be pretty fun for like throwing creatures in your graveyard shenanigans, either milling yourself or like green, destroying things with Gather the Pack, Buried Alive, that kind of stuff. But I know that that's black, but nonetheless, it's just that you're going to be getting creatures, and then when the creature dies, you just get one of these things back again to bring something else back from your graveyard. So this could be a really fun card. I don't see it being broken, but it's a really cool card. Doomwake Giant. So 14, 4/6, Constellation, your opponent's creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. So this basically just means that if you're running green-black enchantments, as this big boy is an enchantment, that you can effectively board wipe your opponent every single turn with all of those -2/-2 stacks going down. So yeah, really cool card. I like it. I'm going to try it out. Extinguish All Hope. So these guys are not pretty. So 14 mana. Destroy all non-enchantment creatures. Then your enchantment creatures get +X/+X. X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. So, all right, this kind of card. I like these kinds of cards for PvE, but not for PvP. So in PvE, you know what your opponent is running, and so I'll probably use the heck out of this in something like the Elder Spark, if I'm allowed to use this in the Elder Spark. I don't remember if you can use Theros Beyond Death and the Elder Spark, but just in general in PvE events, if I know that my opponent isn't running enchantment creatures, then I'm going to be running the heck out of this and making an enchantment to creature deck. But otherwise, in PvP, your opponent might be running an enchantment creature deck too, and then this is just a wasted card in your deck. So I'd rather just run removal, that I can control. So I do actually really like this card, but I only like it for PvE, not for PvP, but I do want it. Ghostblade Eidolon. We get another Eidolon. This is not Eidolon of busted greenness. This is Eidolon of it either makes you either enchant something or it makes a creature token. And then if that thing that is enchanted dies, you get that token anyway. So the critter gets 3/3 and gains double strike, which is fantastic. I love this. Giving things double strike is super mucho gusto. So very, very good. So I want this. I want this very much. Hamlet Black Goliath. So this thing is 24 for an 8/8. That 24 is pretty steep, but then whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, enters, it doesn't have to be cast, enters, this creature gets plus X, X is equal to that creature's power. So you have this thing, you have Killer Instinct, stuff like that, with a whole bunch of other big boys, and this dude is going to get huge. We don't know if this plus X is going to be, like, even with reinforcements, if all those reinforcements are going to count toward the power. So if it's going to be based on, like, base power or the actual effectual power. I'm guessing based on the way this reads that it's based on the effectual power. And so I'm just imagining stuff like this with Xenagos and Double Strike. This thing's going to be nasty. This thing is going to be just such a killer. You're going to get this thing so big. So big. This thing is beautiful. I want it. I want it very much. Herald of the Host. 16, 5/5 Vigilance. I do not like Vigilance anymore, by the way. The change to it, I do not like it. Like, that your creature with Vigilance will not block something, even if that thing would kill you, don't like. When this creature attacks, reinforce it X times until end of turn. Then you gain X times 3 life. X is equal to the number of creatures your opponent controls more than. No, this is bad. Not good. Next. Hero of Erois. So 11, 4/4. While in the battlefield, your aura cards cost 2 less to cast. Heroic. This creature gets a permanent +2/+2. So this will be a good card for newer players. It will not be as good probably in Platinum. I mean, this is a nice ability, but it's just not going to do enough, right? Like, the good aura cards are like Hydra's Growth, and that's 11 mana. Chromanticore, that's 20. I think it's called Staggering Insight, the lifelink, and draw a card. That one's 10. So reducing it by 2 isn't incredibly substantial. 100-handed one. These arms. All right. 5/7 Vigilance Giant. Activate 2 white. If this creature is not buffed, it gets +3/+3. Then this creature gains protection from right click. Protection from the first opposing creature's colors. Otherwise, it gets +1/+1. So getting protection and having Vigilance is cool. So this could be a cool card, but I don't see it being, like, super amazing. For newer players, like, having the Vigilance and that protection could be pretty huge for them, but in the Platinum people, not so good. Kalemne's Captain. 17 for a 7/7 Vigilance. Activate 2 white. If this creature is not buffed, exile all artifacts and enchantments. Then this creature gets 5/5. Otherwise, it gets +1/+1. So this dude's pretty good, actually. So if you don't buff him, right? Him, it, them. Let's just go with them, right? So if you don't buff them, then you get to just wipe all artifacts and enchantments. That's most supports. Unfortunately, that's not going to get rid of stuff like Hixis, some Planeswalker's third ability, stuff like that. But this is going to be pretty strong. And on top of that, having the Vigilance the way that it's currently worded, and then having the activations to increase its power and toughness is definitely going to make this a pretty decent card. The only thing really holding it back is this 17, but I still think it's pretty good. Necromancer's Covenant. Ooh, am I excited to play with this card with something like Ayara or something. So I think it's called Ayara. Ayala? One of those. So when this support enters the board, exile all cards from your opponent's graveyard. Then create X zombie tokens. X is the number of creature cards exiled. If you guys are watching this, Octagon, there should be a D after exile this way. While on the board, your zombie creatures get +1/+1 and gain lifelink. So, I mean, even just that bottom ability is pretty decent, but then that top ability is just so sweet. So you put this thing on in Ashiok, right? You make an Ashiok. This just wipes their graveyard and then gives you lifelink tokens. Yes, please. And then because it's the number of creatures you exile this way, it's not how many creatures are in exile. So you're definitely going to be needing to mill things and then use this as your exile from the graveyard. So you wouldn't want to use this with Leyline of Exile. I think it's called Leyline of the Void. I might be wrong. I think it is. But yeah, I have a lot of ideas for this, like super mill and then exile and get all the zombie tokens and lifelink and the black giant Grave Titan. Yeah, this card, very good card, very cool. Ritual of the Returned. When a creature card enters your graveyard from anywhere, return it to the battlefield under your control. It gains the zombie subtype. Exile the support. I love this so very much. It's 9 mana. And if you use it with Liliana, the one that mills yourself, or really any other mill effect, this just becomes 9 mana and get the next creature from your deck and put it into play, basically. Just if you have ways of milling things. So yeah. And then if one of your creatures dies even, right? Like you have Razia out or something like that, your creature dies, it just comes right back. This card is really, really good. Really, really good. Silence the Believers. That's graphic. Exile target opposing creature. If that creature was buffed or enchanted, exile the first aura card from your opponent's graveyard. Then you may drain 6 mana from your hand. If you do, repeat this effect once. I mean, so your opponent might be running some kind of heroic thing in this event based on what the objectives are, and so this could be good for that. But otherwise, it's 10 to exile a creature. Actually, I think you can just do this again anyways. So then this just becomes what, like 16 mana to exile 2 creatures. That's not bad, I guess. Yeah, not bad. Spirit of the Labyrinth. Okay. This thing is going to be really annoying in Legacy. So when a player draws a card, that player can't draw cards until end of turn. So pretty much all of those Omniscience decks and Barrel decks, stuff like that, this thing just goes nope. I prefer Narset because it's the same amount of mana and it's only your opponent that can't draw the cards. This one limits you. But yeah, still nifty if you don't have Narset. While on the board, your first creature gets +3/+1 and gains unblockable. But yeah, you're really just using this for the top bit. Starfall. 6 mana. Just deal 4 damage to target opposing creature. If that creature is an enchantment, deal 5 damage to that creature's controller. I don't see you getting a lot of use out of this. 6 to do 4. Not a lot. Stink Drinker Daredevil. This card I actually really like. I love the picture that this little goblin stole this big dude's tooth is fantastic. And then on top of that, it's a goblin, and I love goblins. And it's only 9 mana. And while on the battlefield, your giant cards cost 4 less. And then Ferocious, which you should have because giants, your giant creatures get +1/+0 and gain haste. So this gives all those big nasty giants haste. If you're running Killer Instinct, you don't need the haste portion, but I'm really excited to try making this dude with 2 giants. The Hamlet back probably, and something else, or maybe some other thing. I don't know. I wonder if this will make Beanstalk Giants adventure side cost 4 less too. That'd be super sweet. We'll see. I've got some testing to do with the Stink Drinker, but I love everything about it, from name to picture to effects. It's cool. It's not a card you need to chase, but yeah. Stormbreath Dragon did not come to Puzzle Quest as powerful as it was in paper. So it's got haste, flying, protection from white, 17 for a 5/5, activate 3 red. If this creature is not buffed, it gets +3/+3. Then it deals X damage to your opponent's Planeswalker. X is the number of cards in your opponent's hand. Otherwise, it gets +1/+1. If it maintained this dealing damage to your opponent based on the cards in their hand, even if it was buffed, then this would be a good card. But without it, it's just mediocre. So, I mean, you're going to buff it up a lot, which is cool. You could buff it every turn, which is cool. It's a dragon, and it has beautiful artwork. Look at this beautiful lightning. But, no. Sunbond. It's an aura. Target creature you control gets +3/+3, and then that creature gains. When you gain life, this creature gets +1/+1. So, this is just Heliod all over again. So, You can do some pretty silly things with it. The only thing that I found restrictive, someone actually asked me like, hey, would you make a video on Heliod? And the only reason I haven't done that is just that the triggers for that take such a long time. Like, so I made a March of the Multitudes deck where I gained life every time a creature came into play, and then Heliod buffed them. And so between the token coming out, gaining the life, and then the buff being applied, this would just make it so then the buff gets applied again. It's just so much animation for too little. Like if it got into like the 500 range or something, or like a few hundred, then I'd be like, yeah, I want to do this. I'll make a video on it, but it's just not quite enough for too much animation. If you could skip animations, then this would be awesome, and I would love this, but you can't. Twin Flame. 5 for a spell, reinforce target creature you control until end of turn. Then you may drain 8 mana from your hand. If you do, repeat this effect once. I love this so much. 5 mana to reinforce a creature. This is kind of like a, hey, do you have a creature with a heck of a lot of power, like base power? Yes, here's 5 mana to do that much damage, which is awesome. And you could do it more than once, and if that thing has double strike, you're just getting so much value. Like, this card is value town right here. And then if you have things that have an ability for when they lose reinforcements, this just adds to that too. So I love everything about this card. Super cheap mana cost, super good ability, much love. Underworld Coinsmith. So this is going to be a white-black for 9, and it's an enchantment again. A constellation, gain 2 life. When you lose life, your opponent loses 2 life. So, no, I don't want to save that image. Thank you. This card is cool, but not great. I don't lose a life a lot, so yeah. And then Constellation to gain that life. There's better ways to gain life. Warchief Giant, 15 for a 6/4 with haste. When this creature attacks, reinforce it X times until end of turn. Then destroy X times 3 gems. X is the number of creatures your opponent controls more than you. So this is actually a really strong ability for your opponent has more than you, because you're going to destroy gems, which is going to give you mana, which will hopefully get you out of the hole. And then you're going to get reinforcements, which is going to do more damage, which will hopefully make it so that you can stay competitive with your opponent while they have more creatures. But in all, I just don't really like the idea of your opponent having more creatures than you mechanic. So I'm not super high on the card, but I think that this is maybe the best designed of these cards. Agent of Erebos. This is the first card we looked at. So that's the whole set. So what I really like about this is that it's playing on a lot of the other mechanics in the set. So it gives us a heck of a lot more cards with Constellation, which is really nice. So we'll be able to do a lot more with that mechanic in the set. We've got a bunch more like auras and stuff and heroic things to try and make heroic work better. As it stands, there are very, very few cards with heroic. And so there just hasn't really been a reason to use heroic much apart from Anthusa, but you had to buy Anthusa. So this will give you a reason to, at the very least, maybe play some more auras, which is nice. It gives us some really good beefy creatures. It gives us some new good supports. So this just reinforces the Theros Beyond Death set and gives us a whole bunch of stuff to chase and play for. So I'm going to guess that all of the red-white stuff, and when I say red-white, I mean like the heroic white and then red stuff, is going to come from the packs that you get for picking the red-white side. And then all of the black stuff that's like enchantments and constellation, and then the black-white stuff like that is going to come from picking the black-white side. So I'm thinking I'll probably pick black-white first just because I really want those cards. But maybe you can get them anyways. I don't know. I'm really excited for this event to drop and to start getting my paws on these things because there's a lot of cards that I really want from this. So yeah, thanks for checking in. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.